What's a story, amigos? This is Kino with some cool stories for today's story time.
In our first story, Tom Selleck reads about a special visit from the relatives.
And they traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard.
And 5 bad boys find Billy Q, shrunk to pipsqueak size.
"Foo, boys," said Q. "I don't need you around here when I've shrunk so small I fit inside my own shoe. Skittle-scattle home."
Then Valerie Bertinelli reads a book about how much moms love their children.
Mama, do you love me? Yes, I do, dear one.
Major funding for Storytime is made possible by a grant from Helen and Peter Bing, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children. Additional funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, by the annual financial support from viewers like you, and by the National Endowment for Children's Educational Television.
Kino, did your relatives arrive safe and sound?
Yeah. Have you seen my dust Dobin book, Lucy? I was sure I took it home, but I can't find it there. I can't find anything there. It's driving me bonkers.
No, I haven't seen it, Kino. Did you look under the bed? The land of dust Dobbins?
That book's gotta be somewhere in my dumb house. I hate it when this happens.
Oh, my goodness, Kino. Did you get up on the wrong side of the bed this morning?
What bed? I didn't sleep in my bed. Uncle Stan and Aunt Margaret slept in my bed, and my grandpa slept in my sister's bed, and my cousin Joey slept on the couch. So my sister and I slept in sleeping bags on the rug, except I couldn't sleep because my dumb sleeping bag was too hot. But it was too cold to sleep without the dumb thing.
So you had a bad night, huh?
My sister snores, too.
Oh, dear.
No. And try getting into the bathroom, Lucy. Forget it.
Oh, what's that on your cheek?
Huh?
It looks like lipstick. Did somebody kiss you?
Oh, no. It's my Aunt Margaret. She's always kissing me. That's the last straw. Oh.
Oh, it's just because she loves you, Kino. Don't be embarrassed.
Oh, hi, Lucy.
Oh, hi, Tom.
Oh, this is Melissa, and this is Brian. Is Kino here? We're ready for a story. He wasn't at home.
Oh, here I am. What book?
Well, I knew your relatives were coming to visit, so I asked Mr. Selleck to bring a very special book today. Come on.
Okay.
This is a picture studio. I can tell that.
Hi, Mr. Selleck. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Hey,
Hi.
Kino.
Hi.
I understand that you have some visitors at your house.
Oh, yeah. All my relatives came.
Well, that's funny. That's the name of this book. The Relatives Came.
Whoa.
Story by Cynthia Rylant and illustrated by Stephen Gamble. You want to hear it?
Oh, sure. Sure. Does it mention getting lipstick all over you?
Lipstick?
Uh-huh.
Well, let's see. We'll find out.
Okay.
Okay. Now, here we go. It was in the summer of the year when the relatives came. They came up from Virginia. They left when their grapes were nearly purple enough to pick, but not quite. They had an old station wagon that smelled like a real car. And in it, they put an ice chest full of soda pop. And some boxes of crackers and some bologna sandwiches. And up they came from Virginia. They left at 4 in the morning when it was still dark, even before the birds were awake. And then they drove all day long and into the night, and while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and different mountains, and they thought about the almost purple grapes back home. They thought about Virginia. But they thought about us too, waiting for them. So they drank up all their pop, and they ate up all their crackers, and they traveled up all those miles until finally they pulled into our yard. Then it was hugging time. Talk about hugging. Those relatives just passed us all around their car, pulling us against their wrinkled Virginia clothes, crying sometimes. They hugged us for hours. And then it was into the house, and so much laughing and shining faces and hugging in the doorways. You'd have to go through at least 4 different hugs to get from the kitchen to the front room. Those relatives. And finally, after a big supper, 2 or 3 times around until we all got a turn at the table, there was quiet talk. And we were in 2s and 3s through the house. The relatives weren't particular about beds, which was good since there weren't any extras. So, a few squeezed in with us and the rest slept on the floor. Some with their arms thrown over the closest person, and some with an arm across one person and a leg across another. It was different, going to sleep with all that new breathing in the house. The relatives stayed for weeks and weeks. They helped us tend garden, and they fixed any broken things they could find. They ate up all our strawberries and melons, and then they promised that we could eat up all their grapes and peaches when we came back to Virginia. But none of us thought about Virginia much. We were so busy hugging and eating and breathing together. Finally, after a long time, the relatives loaded up their ice chest and headed back to Virginia at 4 in the morning. And we stood there in our pajamas and waved them off in the dark. We watched the relatives disappear down the road. And then we crawled back into our beds that felt too big and too quiet. And we fell asleep. And the relatives drove on all day long and into the night. And while they traveled along, they looked at the strange houses and the different mountains, and they thought about their dark purple grapes waiting at home in Virginia. But they thought about us too, missing them, and they missed us. And when they were finally home in Virginia, they crawled into their silent, soft beds and dreamed about the next summer. What do you think, Kino?
Oh, that was a really good story, Mr. Selleck. I liked it a lot.
Thank you. I liked it too. Did you like this one? A lot? Or a little?
A lot.
How about the pictures?
Me too.
You know, when I read sometimes to my daughter, she has favorite pictures. Do you guys have a favorite?
Mm-hmm.
Which one? I bet you like these. Do you like the mountain ones? How about you?
I feel like this picture.
You do? You like looking through the windows?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Brian? Not sure? Haven't found your favorite yet? I'm that way, too. Sometimes it takes me forever to decide.
Well, Kino, did any of that book sound familiar?
Yep, all of it. Especially the part about everybody sleeping on the floor. And all the hugging, except with my Aunt Margaret, it's kissing.
You know, Kino,
Yeah?
I was over at your mom's saying hello to her and your relatives.
You were?
Yeah, I was. And your mom said you were looking for this book. Guess where it was?
Oh, yeah, I'll guess. On the roof.
No, in the refrigerator.
Oh,
Now, how do you suppose it got there?
you don't know my cousin Joey.
Well, Joey's very little. Maybe he got confused about where you keep your books.
You know, sometimes when I'm not thinking, I put things in silly places. You know, once I put my socks in the refrigerator. Do you ever do silly things like that?
You never did a silly thing like that?
Oh, I bet you did.
Never? How about you, Brian?
No.
You didn't do a silly thing like that?
Ever? Everything you
No.
do is perfect? Wow. I make mistakes all the time.
Well, come to think of it, one time I was eating an ice cream bar, and I started to put it in my pocket, but I caught myself just in time.
Well, one thing's for sure. This is one really cool book.
Yeah, let's read it, okay?
Sure. It's called Five Bad Boys, Billy Q, and the Dust Dobin. Story by Susan Patrone and pictures by Mike Sheenan. The one thing Billy Q had in common with the Dust Dobin, who lived under his bed, was this. They both hated brooms. So Billy Q never swept. And all in all, the two of them got along fine. The Dust Dobin minded his P's and Q's, keeping track of everything that went on close to the floor, being shy and tolerant. He kept to himself among his dust balls with an old slipper for his bed and a sock for his blanket. He never had any call to play his size-changing tricks on Billy Q. But then one day, Billy Q stepped on him, and that got the Dust Dobin riled. So he just naturally had to set things straight. It was because he woke up hungry. Billy Q did, and got out of bed in a big hurry to make breakfast. His long, bony foot came down smack on the 5 tiny toes of the Dust Dobin, who cried, "Yow! Watch out for folks smaller than yourself. Such small folk ought not to be under my feet in the morning," said Billy Q, who was sometimes tetchy and peevish before his breakfast. "Small folk should be more particular where they stand, and that's freely given advice." Well, this made the Dust Dobin so vexed that his hair went flat. "You're going to find out what it's like to be small," he said. And he shrank Billy Q down to his own size, no bigger than a soup spoon. Now, Billy Q looked at his new pipsqueak self and said, "Now you give me back my true and natural size." The Dust Dobin, he just laughed in a sneezy way. "You gave me 5 sore toes and some free advice. You'll get your size back when 5 gifts are given to you, and not before." Billy Q pondered on this, you know. And he figured he could ask the mamas of some bad boys he knew. He'd figured they'd give him some things from their kitchen. But the Dust Dobin guessed Billy Q's plan. "No asking allowed," he said. "The gifts must be freely given, just like your advice." And then he laughed again, and dust balls floated up from his dusty hair and beard. He knew Billy Q had no rich friends with presents to give, nor a birthday anytime soon. He reckoned Billy Q would have a long, long time to learn about being small. "Botheration," said Billy Q, for he was that put out. He went outside and sat under the water spigot whose faucet he could no longer reach. And he pondered over the problem of how to get 5 gifts without asking for them. Pondered hard enough to make himself right thirsty. The dust Dobin, who had followed Billy Q outside, sat hidden in a patch of dandelions. Just then, 5 rowdy bad boys came running up from town. They were cross-grained and hard-headed and looking for trouble. What they found was Billy Q, small as a soup spoon, and sad as empty pockets. "Foo, boys," said Q. "I don't need you around here when I've shrunk so small I fit inside my own shoe. Skittle-scattle home." But those stubborn boys almost never did what they were told. They dug their mitts into their pockets and they dug their heels into the dirt, and they stayed where they were, gawking and gawking at wee Billy Q. This here new, skimpy, scrimpy size is my worry, and you boys can't help me, so scram. But those headstrong boys did not listen to what they were told. Seeing Billy Q so scanty and so pitiful made them even more ornery, and they would not leave. The first stubborn boy, who was so contrary he wore his shoes on the wrong feet, dug a bottle cap out of his pocket. "Here's a cap, little Billy," he said, "to keep the sun off your head." Billy Q put it on. It fit, but it wobbled. The second stubborn boy, who was so willful, he ate cold-cooked squash, pulled a rubber band out of his pocket. "Here's a cap strap, little Billy," he said, "to hold your cap in place." Well, Billy Q put it over his cap and under his chin, twice around, and it fit without a wobble. The third stubborn boy, who was so wayward he wore his cap backwards, found a gum wrapper in his pocket. He made it square, and then he folded it carefully 5 times. "Here's a cup, little Billy," he said, and filled it with water from the spigot. Billy Q drank from the tiny cup, which did not leak. The fourth stubborn boy, who was so headstrong, he wore his overalls inside out, took a popsicle stick from his pocket, he propped it between some rocks, and said, "Here's a bench to sit on, little Billy, so you can swing your legs." Billy Q climbed up on the bench, and he swung his legs and squinted into the bright, hot sun. The fifth stubborn boy, who was so sassy, he combed his hair before going to bed instead of when he got up in the morning. He felt in his pockets, which were purely empty. That boy had nothing but his own shadow. So he gave that to Billy Q by standing in front of the sun. Well, now that he was in the shade, Billy Q grinned, and in the time it took, he grew back to his true and natural size. He kept on grinning because he knew he had 5 friends, good and stubborn ones, and because now, finally, he could reach his cook stove. "You boys are not so bad," he said, and winked at the hidden dust Dobin. "Let's all have breakfast." And for once, just once, those boys were either too surprised or too hungry to be contrary. And from that day on, there were no more wrangles or squabbles with the dust Dobin, because now and again, Billy Q left useful things like bottle caps and rubber bands and gum wrappers and popsicle sticks under the bed. And the dust Dobin keenly appreciated such freely given gifts. Billy Q also watched where he put his feet in the morning. And he didn't mind a bit when a sock or a slipper turned up missing. And he never forgot what it was like to be small.
Oh, that was really a cool book. I'm glad Mom found it in the refrigerator.
Me too.
Oh, say, Mr. Selleck, when you saw my mom, did she act like she was, well, mad at me?
No, I don't think so, Kino. Why do you ask?
Well, I think I was sort of grouchy this morning.
Oh, Kino had to sleep on the floor, and his sleeping bag was too hot, and his sister snored.
No, she wasn't mad at you, Kino. And your grandpa said he was very proud of you. And your little cousin Joey,
Yeah.
he kept saying, "Where's Kino? Where's Kino?" And your Aunt Margaret said that she just can't stop kissing you.
Oh, brother.
Oh, it's just because she loves you, Kino, that's all. Oh, would you like to hear a story about how much moms love their children?
Yeah.
Oh, I always like to hear a story.
Okay, then let's pay a visit to Valerie Bertinelli. She's going to read a wonderful book to her son, Wolfgang.
Okay.
Here we go.
You want to read this book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's called Mama, Do You Love Me by Barbara M. Juice, and it's illustrated by Barbara Lavalley. Mama, do you love me? Yes, I do, dear one. How much? I love you more than the raven loves his treasure, more than the dog loves his tail, and more than the whale loves his spout. How long? I'll love you until the umiak flies into the darkness, until the stars turn to fish in the sky, and the puffin howls at the moon. Mama, what if I carried our eggs, our ptarmigan eggs, and I tried to be careful, and I tried to walk slowly, but I fell, and the eggs broke? Then I would be sorry, but still, I would love you. What if I put salmon in your parka, ermine in your mittens, and lemmings in your muckalucks? Well, then I would be angry. What if I threw water at our lamp? Then, dear one, I would be very angry, but still, I would love you. What if I ran away? Then I would be worried. What if I stayed away and sang with the wolves and slept in a cave? Then, dear one, I would be very sad, but still, I would love you. What if I turned into a musk ox? Well, then I would be surprised. And what if I turned into a walrus? Then I would be surprised and a little scared. What if I turned into a polar bear and I was the meanest bear you ever saw, and I had sharp, shiny teeth, and I chased you into your tent and you cried? Then I would be very surprised and very scared. But still, inside the bear, you would be you, and I would love you. I will love you always, forever and for always, because you are my dear one. I like this story. What about you, Wolfie? You like this story too?
The big one.
Oh, big one? Oh. Okay.
What a wonderful story, and what beautiful pictures of life in the Arctic.
Hey, how much did you like that story, Kino?
Oh, more than my sister snoring. Oh, but what if I have another grumpy day, or worse. My mom will always love me, even if she does get mad at me sometimes.
Of course, Kino. And I think the same is true about you. Well, it sounded like you were a little mad at everybody this morning. Your mom, your relatives, your sister. But I think you still love them all very much, don't you?
Oh, sure. I even guess I don't mind all that much when Aunt Margaret kisses me. But I wish she wouldn't wear all that lipstick.
Well, maybe tonight you can sleep with an extra sheet or a light blanket instead of your sleeping bag so you won't be so hot.
Yeah. Oh, and maybe I could sleep on the opposite side of the rug, so if my sister snores, it won't bother me so much.
That's a great idea. And if you can't find something, remember, look in the refrigerator.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Oh, let's not forget our story picks. All right, here's mine. It's called Something from Nothing, and it's a wonderful Jewish folktale about a boy, his grandfather, and a shrinking blanket. Do you think Billy Q is ready?
My story pick has a grandpa in it, too. It's a...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's down there. It's called The Wild Woods. My grandpa really likes this one a lot. It's about a little girl who takes her grandpa on an adventure through the woods.
And that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming, Tom.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
thanks, Mr. Selleck.
You're welcome.
And until next time, keep a story in your heart and check your cheeks for lipstick. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Today's Storytime books are The Relatives Came, story by Cynthia Ryland, illustrated by Stephen Gamble. Five Bad Boys, Billy Q and the Dust Dobin, story by Susan Patrone, pictures by Mike Sheenan. Mama Do You Love Me by Barbara M. Juice, illustrated by Barbara Lavalle. Something from Nothing by Phoebe Gilman, and The Wild Woods by Simon James. You can find these and other books at your local library.
Major funding for Storytime is made possible by a grant from Helen and Peter Bing, so that families everywhere can share the joy of reading with their children. Additional funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, by the annual financial support from viewers like you, and by the National Endowment for Children's Educational Television. Storytime is a production of KCET Los Angeles.